Hello everyone, and welcome back to CL Aldrich Art, where we do go on coloring adventures. On Sunday, the 21st, I did start this picture by Jane F. Hankins in a live stream. We did it toward the end of the stream. It is called Summer Serenade, and the book is, is Friends from My Imaginary World by Jane F. Hankins. Jane's art and I get along really well. For those of you who might not know me, I do draw my own coloring books. I am an artist. This is my most recent book, but these are the books that I have currently available beside that one. They are all on sale in print at Amazon at all the worldwide locations. And you can also print your own copies if you prefer that by purchasing a PDF instant download from my Etsy shop. I would like to mention that all of the drawings in my books are available as individual drawings. It's obviously much more cost-effective to purchase the books, but some people don't like every drawing in every book. Fortunately, I haven't had that problem, but I hear others do. You can also choose to follow me on social media if you would like to. I'm always around. At any rate, let's get to coloring this absolutely gorgeous picture of Summer Serenade. Now, I am working with Derwent Inktense, which is my favorite medium. I am very lucky to have the 72 set of pencils. For those of you who might not be familiar with this medium, these pencils are solid ink, not wax, but actual ink pigment, which is then activated with water. They come in a variety of absolutely stunning colors. The only caution that I would say is that the colors represented at the end of the pencil are not necessarily the colors that the pencils actually are. They're more directional than exact. I have, for that reason, always swatched all of my coloring mediums. And so from time to time, you will see me refer to this particular book, which is all of the colors that I've actually swatched out that are in the set. So so far in this little guy, I used the saddle brown and the fern green. I also used some apple green. I used different colors in the wings. Now this does only have one layer of color on it so far. We will be adding additional layers, but I have found that before I start tweaking something that I've already colored, it's good to color the things around it so I know how to tweak it. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but yeah. So let's get started. I have envisioned this little flower here in pink. I just love Jane's work. It is so whimsical. This is the water brush that I use. Now, I did notice on Sunday that I got a number of questions about what my favorite water brush is. I got this from a company called US Supply Pro. It's marketed under a brand called Aquanaut. I used to have the box, but I think I tossed it. This is basically just sort of a no-name brand. It came in a pack of 3. it was the least expensive that I could find for this. I like this particular kind of barrel, the long barrel on it. And I just think that they're a sturdier plastic than some of the other ones that I've seen that are a little bit thinner. And it came in a variety. There's 3 brushes that come in a set. I have 2 of them left. Somewhere along the line, I got the shafts out of order with the tops, and this one has never worked right since that happened. It used to be my favorite brush. It is the short one, but it doesn't work well for me anymore. This one was my least favorite brush and has now turned into my favorite brush, primarily because I finally learned how to use the bigger tip and I like it. Don't worry that they get stained. That does not show up on your work. I'd be more likely to test that on a blank piece of paper. Let's see. This is white or whatever. Yeah, see? Even though it's stained, it does not give any color. Anyway, so let's move on here. I am going to be using the fuchsia pink for this, and I am going to just put some a bit darker around her collar here. A little shading. Sometimes, if it's been a little bit since I've colored, and it has, it's been about, well, what's today? Thursday? Friday? Friday, I think. I haven't colored since Sunday, so it might take me a couple of seconds to get back into the groove of weight, how much weight to use. Now note I am not putting down a lot of pigment. I am using about medium weight pressure, and I'm just feathering it out toward the end as well, because what I want is for it to be darker coming away from her face, and then lighter, of course, as it'll go out toward the ends. But I'm going to add some additional colors in there, so I don't want to get too dark. You can always get lighter with Inktense, but you can always, sorry, I said that exactly opposite of how I meant it. You can always add color, but you cannot take it away again. So I urge you, if you are new to Inktense, your tendency is going to be to use too much pigment. And that's okay, because that is how we learn. As you learn to color with these tools, you will get better about it. And you'll learn to control the amount of pigment that you're using. Okay, so now I've added this fuchsia, which is in fact a very, very bright pink right here. But I'm also going to be using this thistle, but I'm going to use it very, very lightly. And what will happen is it will come out closer to pink. If you use that very lightly, there it is, the thistle. I could use the deep rose. Wait a second. You know what? I'm going to change the thistle. I do want this one to be pink, so I am going to go with the deep rose, which is it doesn't really matter, number 710, but the color name is out here as Deep Rose. So I am just going to come around the edge. Now, and I'm going to actually come a little bit darker on that. I'm going to come down here just a little bit, and I'm really now, I backed off the pressure. So I'm using primarily the weight of the pencil. And therefore it lays down a much lesser amount of pigment. I'm also not going to color all the way down. This is as far as I'm going to go with it. Because I'm going to add some white in as well. Now, unlike watercolors, or probably like watercolors, the white in Inktense is a little bit more opaque. So it tends to give a little bit better coverage. Now, I can always add more color to this later, which is why I'm being sort of careful now. Now, I am going to, here in this divot, I'm going to make it a little bit darker, just like I did on this one. And then just go fairly lightly. I'm only going to do these first three, and then I'll show you what I mean. So you're not having to anticipate while I color all of them. I will color all of them for you, but I just want you to see what I mean. Okay, so I've added in some pink over there. Now, I've sort of established with our little cricket here, or grasshopper, that the light is coming from sort of straight on, maybe a little bit off to the right-hand side of the piece. And actually Jane established that when she drew it. So I'm trying to think about that as I'm deciding where, like this one would be a little bit darker on this side if the light is hitting it from this part. And this one would be getting hit straight on. This one as well. Okay, so now I'm going to grab out the white. Once again, the white is very, very opaque. You can do quite a bit of correcting with this antique white if you get some colors that are too dark, but it is one of those things that you want to use somewhat sparingly, because you can you can make mud with it, trying to get any kind of color intensity back. So, and see how that just sort of softens up those edges as well, which is the only place that I'm putting it, is the edges sort of down here. But don't worry, it's not gonna stay white, because now I am going to pull just a little bit of the scarlet pink. Now, the scarlet pink has a little bit of kind of orangey color and a little bit of pink. So I just want to use it very, very sort of sparingly down here at the tips. I just sort of want to add just a blush of color. Of that, and then I also want to take probably the cadmium yellow, and add just a little bit down in here. Don't worry, I'm not going crazy. Just trying to create some visual interest for our little flower here that will tie into some other things. Now I'm going to go back to the deep rose and just add just a few little bits of it in there. You don't have to use very much Inktense. To get a wonderful and yet subtle result. So, I hope everybody who is watching is doing well today. I know that we've seen surges in the virus across the U.S. I hope that those who are near and dear to you are well, along with everybody else. See, and now I'm just going to brush it back a little bit. Now I'm at the darkest part. Now I didn't worry that I went over a little bit the grasshopper antenna, because the wonderful thing about Inktense is that once it's down, it's permanent, and you can't move it again. You can add color over it, but it's pretty hard to mess up. And just a couple of strokes over the green, since that green is a stronger color than the pink, is not going to make that big of a difference. So you see how I just sort of added a little bit of a sun glow there to our, so I'm going to wet this white part just a little bit. I'm controlling it quite a bit. Like there's a little more pigment here. So I'm wiping it off, dabbing it off as I'm making it. As I stroke, I'm picking up naturally just a tiny bit of the pigment on the upstroke. So I can do any adjusting that I want of intensity down here in this white part by just picking up a tiny bit of the darker pink up here and letting it work on my brush till I get it right where I want it, and then I stop going over that part. Now, I am naturally very light-handed with a water brush, and you need to be, because this is not watercolor paper, and it is better paper than most, but I will tell you that I have no trouble at all in using water mediums with my Amazon paper. I know that there are a lot of people that do have trouble with it, but I mean, I do it all the time. And people who watch my channel, if you go back and look at any time I'm using Inktense or watercolors or anything like that in my own books, it's not a problem. So I know that there are people that are very, very into, different paper qualities and things like that. I just have never had a problem. I'm not being critical in any way. I've just never had a problem with it. How about that? It's just like anything else. You have to learn what works and what doesn't. You can't scrub. You can't use that back and forth motion on it. You've got to, sort of stroke paint. Okay, so that is the look that I'm going after on this. Let's go ahead and do the rest of them. Okay, that was the fuchsia. And so now we're just adding a little bit of the darker pink, or the deep rose, sorry. Just pulling it out. Once again, just using the weight of the pencil, which, and I'm using just one stroke in one direction. And what that does is as you are coming down on the downstroke, your pencil is naturally lifting up at the end, which sort of feathers the color in the direction that you want it to go. This would probably be a little bit darker there. Okay. Once again, this one would be pretty light up toward the top because it's got the sun hitting it, although down here it would probably be a little bit darker because it's supposed to be curving kind of down. So I was watching Anne at a Colorful Lives live stream from last Friday. I finally watched it. I guess it would have been, technically it would have been yesterday, Thursday. It is just very early in the morning on Friday here, so. And she's so funny. She was telling a story that just made me laugh. And now I don't remember what it was, but of course, you know, I just love to visit with Anne at A Colorful Life. And I'm so glad she's going to be doing, well, she said not to hold her to it, but she's hoping. And see, I added color there. I can go ahead and add the rest of that other color in, even though it's going to be on top of the other. She said not to hold her to it, but that she might be doing a regular, you know, like time slot every Friday or every other Friday right around that same time, which I think was 2 o'clock in the afternoon, which I think is just terrific. It could be that it was a little bit later. Unfortunately, it was a day that I was probably sound asleep. I was having a week of day sleeping for some reason. So I'm just being a little bit darker now, sort of tweaking in some of the darker spots in between, little shadows. Okay, so we'll add some, what did I add in? I added the white. So we'll add some white, sort of feather that down a bit. And I am doing it in the direction of pulling the pink into the white as opposed to the other direction. Because it is pulling the pink into the white a little bit. And that's exactly what I want it to do. So it's a shame that you can't actually see the white. For what it's worth, I can't see it either. I just know it works. It works to help hold it down just a little bit. So just a little bit of the sorry, scarlet pink. Had the tangerine in hand. It's okay. Such things happen. And if you grab a wrong color, it is never going to hurt. It'll just make it a little bit more interesting. So once again, just the tiniest little hint of color down there at the ends. Then with a little bit of, I thought I had used the cad yellow. Didn't I use the cad yellow? Did I take it back out? What did I do with my cad yellow? That isn't it. That isn't it. Oh, there it is. Put it back in the wrong spot. What is the saying? If it was a snake, it might have jumped out and bit me. Speaking of snakes, it's not a good segue. I have been, y'all know that I just get addicted to channels, right? You know, that generally have nothing to do with coloring, but like I'll just sit and watch them. So I've been binge watching a channel called Homestead Heart. And once again, it's this couple, and they bought a homestead, and so I'd seen a few of their more recent episodes, but this week I went back and I watched all of their back episodes, which they've been on the air now for a couple years. So fortunately, most of their episodes are short. They're, like 8 to 10 minutes, that type of thing. And after the first few, I was able to sort of tell the way that they were formatted, and so I was able to, skip through a few of them. Anyway, but the thing that I adore about the channel is that no matter what happens, no matter what adversity they face, they never ever let the problems overwhelm their gratitude. And I don't know if that made sense or not. Like for instance, here's just a for instance, and this is just a one little, a little thing. Well, it wasn't a little thing really. She wakes up one morning. Her husband obviously has a regular job, right? Because he's away from the homestead during the day, and she wakes up. Her dogs. She's got Great Pyrenees border, or dogs that do patrolling and all. The patrol. It's a big property. So we're not talking about a little, 2-acre homestead. We're talking about she's probably got 30 or 40 or 50 acres there, or maybe more, maybe less. I don't know. Say 20 acres. But if you ever lived on an acre, you know how big that is. And there's lots of buildings and places on it. In the back, there's an orchard, and there's big silo buildings, and there's a big greenhouse, and all of this other kind of stuff. So she wakes up. She's got out her back door of her house, and sort of way out are raised beds. The dogs are going crazy. She looks out the window, and there are cows literally everywhere in her yard, walking in her raised beds, where the vegetables are growing, just munching on the lawn. They are everywhere. And we're not talking about, 5 cows. We're talking about a herd of, like 40 cows, maybe more, 50 cows probably, that, they belong to the property next door. Obviously, they busted down a fence and got on her property. But it's like, what do you do? What do you do? Your entire crop is in jeopardy here, or, all of the vegetables that you are planning on harvesting and canning and all of that for your family for the winter are being trampled by these cows. Now, she the fact that she flipped on and did a live is so funny. She says, I had no choice but to do a live because I didn't have any charged batteries for her phones. So, but at one point in time, the cows come around the end of the house and end up out in the road stopping traffic. Now, apparently people in the neighborhood know about who these cows belong to, so apparently one of the guys that had to stop his car, and because the road, literally, they have a highway that goes out in front of their house. It just sort of became a parking lot while these cows all these cows were there. And Mrs. Olmsted Hart, obviously she was upset about her vegetables. But she said, well, my lawn did need to be mowed, so at least they ate the grass. I just thought that was so adorable. And she didn't really say anything about whether or not, the neighbor ever made restitution or not. But she did say how wonderful her subscribers were, because people immediately, of course, started sending her email of, with offers of assistance to help her with seedlings and, stuff to replace the stuff that she lost. Because when you grow your own food, if you lose that little infant plant, it's gone. You're days or weeks away from being able to replace it in the ground, and the growing season may not be that long, kind of thing. And so she made a very special video. Her next video was to thank her subscribers for their just wonderful outpouring of care and affection. And and she said she even had one guy who offered to buy them all the fencing that they would need to but I don't think she took advantage of that offer. That would be a little too much given the size of their property, kind of thing. But what a generous offer of somebody to make. And so it's just, I love it. But bugs, when she had an invasion of Japanese beetles, and because they're trying to farm or grow organically, and so they're learning as they go, and they're raising meat chickens and all kinds of different things. It is just a very, very cool channel to watch. I highly recommend it. The Homestead Heart. I will leave a link for it in the description below. Okay, now, I'm going to save the little face because I haven't decided what I want to do yet. But I am going to do the leaves on this one. And I do want these to be a brighter green than the olives, because I want to set them apart from our grasshopper. So for that, I've chosen some brighter greens, whereas this was the muted sort of pea greens. These are the true green greens. So I've chosen the spring green, the felt green, and the Ionian green are the three that I'm going to use. I'm going to use the Ionian very sort of sparingly here where the stalk would come out from under the bloom, and I'm going to use it in the areas where the folds are. So this, like green, there's a fold in this leaf right here. And I actually find that I can see these better if I look at them on the camera than I can with my eye. It's very weird. But all right, see where Jane has added some dark shading in? So that's where I'm using the Ionian, which is the darkest of the greens. So I'm just sort of following her shading. This actually looks like it is also, although I'm not quite sure why, I think that it's also under there, as is this one. Now, if that's the case, then that is going to mean that these, as the part that are folding over from underneath, are going to be the lightest. So I'll color those in. So again, I'm going to go dark here. And the lightest here. And I'm going to go light just very, very on the areas that I think are curving toward our light. And would be the lighter green up here. One of the things about Inktense is if you go super light on them, okay, there I can pick out a little place where our leaf is sort of flopping over. These are very loose leaves. Okay, now the felt green is the mid green, so I'll use it out here toward the ends. Essentially with Inktense, you are painting a bit as opposed to coloring, but I think that is, I don't think that is a bad thing. My friend Virginia has always sort of referred to Inktense as painting. And I don't really disagree with that, you know. So I'll add a little bit there. All right, now I'll switch to the mid green again and do this one here. And let's see how that leaf looks. Okay. So I am going to start out here with the lighter. And then I'm going to tap off. Now I'm going to move to the darker and brush back over the lighter. So so that it sort of blends in. Lighter, tap off into the darker. It could be that my theory is just all wet as to the shape of these leaves, but I can always fix them if I mess them up. That's the thing, is that you may not get it right, but you can always tweak it after it's dry. But you do sort of have to wait until it's dry. Yeah, that one is kind of interesting. Not sure I did that well, but we'll have to wait and see. So now on this one, I want it to be light, sort of here in the center, and mid-tone felt green, darker out here at the edges. And sort of in here. I don't know. Could be I'm just all wet. Me with my weird theories. It's all supposed to be what you see. So if you see something different, then be different. You don't have to be like everybody else. If you don't want to color green leaves, you can color pink leaves. Or orange leaves, or brown leaves. Or gray leaves. Maybe you want to do a Halloween twist and color everything in browns and grays, or oranges and purples, or whatever coloring you want to do. That is the thing in coloring. There is no right or wrong. There's just coloring. Nobody is going to come tell you that you are wrong. This is a stem that goes someplace else. I don't know what it goes to, but we'll just color it that color. This could be grass growing up. All sorts of stuff. Okay, this is our lightest part. So we'll color that part lighter on this. Maybe this is lighter. This up here. And then maybe the rest of it is the felt green. Sort of adding a little pigment in. like so. And once again, it is not rocket science. It's coloring. It's supposed to be fun. There's no, you can't, you're not messing it up. Our mistakes are art's way of making our art personal. Flat coloring, shaded coloring, doesn't matter. It's how you feel doing it that makes the difference. Okay, we have one more leaf, and it's kind of weird. I'm thinking that it is a I don't know. I don't think it needs any light because it's in there sort of tucked in behind stuff. So I'm just going to use the dark and the mid-tone on it. It's actually sort of back here, hanging out. Just serving as a backdrop. Maybe I will add just a little bit of light here at the top of it. Yeah, this is the spring green. Put quite a bit of pigment on that just because it is back there in the dark. Now I am making an exception to the back and forth rule just because I want these to blend a little bit darker. But I am touching it still very, very lightly. And I do want to add some down here, but it's already wet, so I am going to take the Ionian green, which is the darker green. I am going to touch the pencil directly to the brush. Now, you'll see that that makes it really dark, right? And that's okay, because it can be like a shadow. I tapped off the extra pigment. It can be like a shadow from this grass. Okay? So there's our, now remember, first layers. You can always go back, tweak with more color. I do want to, I am only going to, in this particular video, I'm only going to be doing this because otherwise the videos just sort of run too long. But I just wanted to, give you an idea of some of the things that are possible with Inktense. That doesn't mean that I won't color on this on a video again. But okay. Shut up and say what you mean, Christine. Okay. All right, I am, as you know, I am terrible at coloring people, so I don't even try. And that is probably bad on my part, but the bottom line is I have no desire to color people. So what I do is when it comes to, if I've got to put down a skin tone, and I don't know yet whether or not I want her or any of them to have humanoid type faces. But I will generally, when I'm trying to make that decision, I will color their faces in with something like a Cali Art marker. In this particular case, I'm going to use Skin White, which is R000. And let me find it, because it is a lovely neutral skin tone. And I've got a piece of plastic down here behind the page, because Cali Art will bleed through everything. Any alcohol marker will bleed through anything. Jane's paper is beautiful cardstock. These books are so worth the cost, but I'm not going to risk the the picture on the other side by not doing it. So, or by not putting down a protection. So I am just simply going over the entire face except for the eyes. And the lips with the Cali Art marker to give it a skin tone. Okay. And then if I want to add little blushy cheeks or something like that with the Inktense, I can. So I hope that that helps you solve the issue when you've got a, when you don't color people, like I don't. Or if you do color people, and you can do this with pencils or whatever. The bottom line is this. Inktense is very difficult because it just doesn't have any decent skin tones. If what you want is actual skin tone. They are very difficult to make. You probably could do it if you used an opaque white, but why when you could just whip out a Cali Art marker and do it with that. Sorry. Okay, so let's back the camera back out and see how we're progressing along so far. I think it is looking good. All right. So I hope that you enjoyed this video on how to get this lovely glowy effect with your Derwent Inktense. Until we meet again, please do color something pretty. Thanks for watching, everybody.